Tonight I'm going to give you 5 more tips on setting up and working in a small shop. Some of you may have seen the video I did previously on how to set up a small shop. I got such a good response to that video with so many people giving great feedback, so I decided to make Shop Setup Tips Part 2. The shops that I have set up have always been pretty small, and I've learned some tips and tricks for things that work and things that don't. So tonight I'm going to show you my next 5 tips for a small shop setup. So in a small shop, you're obviously limited by space, which means that if you have stuff everywhere, you're never going to be able to get anything done. I've been to a lot of people's garages, and some of you may have garages like this where there's a little tiny walkway between tools to get from one side of the shop to the other. There's so much stuff in there, you can't really move around. In my shop, if my workbench is full of stuff, it's really hard to get started on another project. I have a regular rhythm where after I complete every project and before I put finish on, I do a complete cleaning of the shop to blow all the dust out, to get it nice and clean so that I can apply finish in an environment that is fairly dust-free. I won't say that my shop is ever fully dust-free, but the floor is clean, the workbenches are clean, the tools are clean. This makes a great environment for finishing, so I don't have to worry as much about dust falling and settling on things or getting kicked around. Then when I'm done applying the finish and I clean up all of my rags and my finish supplies, I have a nice clean workshop to start the next project. Of course, sometimes projects overlap, so sometimes you have to move your half-finished project to the side while you clean everything else, apply your finish on the first project, or maybe you have a few going at once. Figure out a regular rhythm to clean up your shop. Sweep out the dust, blow out the dust. If you have a garage shop, I've discovered my new favorite way to clean out my shop. I have a battery-powered leaf blower, which is awesome because I can open the door at one side of my shop, I can open the big door in the front, and I just blow all the dust from one end to the other, and man, that does a good job. You'll be so much more productive and creative when you have a nice, clean workspace to start from. In a small shop, it can be very difficult to run ducting in all the places you need to just because there's not that much space and you're giving up space on the wall or on the ceiling. If you can make it work, that is awesome. But if not, don't worry. You can get very effective dust collection with just shop vacs and an air filtration system. My recommendation would be to put dust collection anywhere you have a lot of fine dust going everywhere. So the miter saw is one place you'd want to do some kind of dust collection. Sanders are a place you want to have dust collection. Your larger tools like maybe a table saw, joiner, planer, those ones should have some dust collection. Your drill press would probably be fine without dust collection. One of the keys with this is an air filtration system. You can see mine up here, and I try to keep this filter pretty clean. I got a washable filter on it. That way I can clean it out and reuse it, and I can always see when the dust is built up real heavy on it and it's time to blow it out. The air filtration systems actually work really well in small shops because there's a lot less air to move. So it can get moving and it can keep the airflow going. So any of those particles that you look at and that are just kind of swirling in the air above you, those ones will get sucked up by the air filtration system. And you can actually watch, if you have a light up above it, you can see as you're sanding or as you have those dust particles, the air pulling those dust particles up. And it's like against gravity, it's pulling the dust up into that system. But that gets it up and out. I would also recommend getting a good respirator or a dust mask. A lot of us over the last year or two have become very knowledgeable in masks. So get a good one. Just remember, woodworkers used masks before they were cool. This is the respirator I use when I'm doing a lot of heavy sanding or something that has a lot of dust in the air. I also use it for finishing. It's an organic one, so it gets rid of all of the finishing smells. If you're using spray paint, lacquer, those smells are all filtered out so you don't breathe any of that in. Lighting is one of those things that you can turn into a science project, and you can measure lumens, you can calculate the distances and space them exactly right. And there's formulas for that, there's websites where you can figure out all of that. But my recommendation to keep it simple is to put lights over any of your work areas, any of the major tools that you're using. If your ceilings are higher, you probably need more lights closer together. I like having the flexibility of having outlets in the ceiling that I can just plug the lights into. That allows me to upgrade if I want to, or to change, or to add more, or daisy chain together if the lights allow that. That outlet is then wired to my switch to turn my lights on and off. If you're setting up circuits in your shop, I would highly recommend keeping your lighting circuit separate from your tool circuits. That makes it so you don't have the flickering or the dimming of the lights when you turn a power tool on. Most motors, when they come on, have a big power surge at the beginning, which is why you get that initial flicker and then everything kind of calms down. Keep it on a separate circuit and you won't have that problem. Maximize your power outlets. This is another thing where you can never have too many outlets. I've probably added at least 10 additional outlets to various places around my shop, and I still have times when I'm like, oh, I need another plug there. If you're setting up your shop from scratch, I would highly recommend putting in double outlets in each of your outlet locations so that you always have enough for what you need. Some of your tools may require dedicated circuits or dedicated outlets. In the US, our regular outlet power is at 110, but I have certain tools that run on 220. So I had to create a dedicated circuit just for the 220 tool. Make sure after you do your shop layout that you figure out exactly where those 220 circuits need to go. Another tip is to try to keep your dust collectors and shop vacs on separate circuits from your tools. This may not always be possible, and that's fine, but again, you have a motor in your shop vac or your dust collector, you have a motor in your tool, and both of those will create a surge when you turn them on. And sometimes it can actually overload the circuit. All of my tool and dust collection circuits are set up with 20 amp breakers, and then things like the lighting can be set up with a 15 amp breaker. For your shop vacs and dust collectors, I would recommend some kind of a remote start. This is something I got from my big box store pretty cheap, and it has the receiver unit which you plug your tool into, which then plugs into the wall. This has been very reliable even though it's only rated for 15 amps because most of the shop vacs and the smaller dust collectors don't pull that much anyway. This remote controls 2 shop vacs and my Harbor Freight dust collector. That makes it really useful when it's something I can just carry around with me in my shop. My final tip for small shops is to utilize any leftover space for wood storage. Any of those areas up high that you can't reach without being on a ladder, lumber storage. Any of those cubbies underneath things, shelves in small areas, lumber storage. You always want to keep some extra lumber on hand. You never know when you need some scraps for something. Sometimes the lumber store is farther away or you don't get a chance to get back there very frequently. Keep some extra lumber on hand so you can keep working if you mess up, you cut something too short, or you miscalculate how much you need. That way you can keep working. Also, manage your scrap wood and your cutoffs. As woodworkers, we like to say, I could make something out of that little tiny piece. I think I'm going to hold on to it for the next 14 years until I find the perfect thing for it. And then 16 years later, when you have so much scrap wood, you don't know what to do with it. I think I'll probably use this soon. I'm sure I will. Give it up. You have to draw the line somewhere. Decide what pieces are too small to use. And it's okay to get rid of some. It's okay to burn some. We probably have pieces of wood that we'll die with because they're too nice for any project. Try to build projects out of scrap wood if you can. That helps to use it up. Keep scrap wood on hand that you commonly would use for projects. Periodically go through it and look and remember what you have. That way you can think of it when you're starting your next project and say, oh, I do have a 1x4 already. Always remember with any shop that it's flexible, it's fluid, things are changing, you can move things around, you can reorganize. That's all part of having a shop. Don't get too locked in on any one thing. In a small shop, you have to develop good habits, but you can totally do it. My shop here is the size of a 1-car garage. It's 11 feet by about 20 feet. If your garage or your shop is packed full and you can only get through that tiny little walkway to get around your tools, don't worry. You have to start somewhere. You can do this. If you haven't seen it already, I have another video that shows a very simple way to set up your shop that anyone can do. If you have another tip that you think I missed in these 2 videos, make sure to tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your insights and advice. One of my favorite things about the maker community is 99% of the people are nice and friendly and positive and helpful. We're all trying to share the things that we love. Be positive and help each other. It's so rewarding to be able to do woodworking, to make things that are useful. Subscribe if you haven't already. I've got a lot of content that I've created already, and I've got a lot of plans of more that I'm doing in the future. Best of luck in your shop. Now, go build something, and we'll see you next time.